Welcome to the Legendarium Green Team. I'm your host, Kyptan, and today we have a very special episode. For here with us is author Daniel O'Malley, author of The Rook and other books, including his Shecky files. Can you please tell me how to pronounce that?
Oh God, this makes me sound so ridiculous. It was a word that I had seen written down many times before. It's one of those words where you've seen it and you're like, yeah, this is how it's pronounced. And I always thought it was Sheke.
Mm-hmm.
And then people kept saying, oh, the Checky. And I'm like, the what? And apparently that is the correct pronunciation. It's a term from medieval heraldry. It means, the checkerboard pattern. And I had studied medieval history. And so I'd written, no, it's the Sheke, and had written it down. And there was much confusion and bewilderment for a while. So officially in my books, it's the Sheke, but I always sort of try to acknowledge in the books that it's mispronounced and that it's not the real way of saying it. So.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like every time I saw it in the books, it was like, oh, this is not the real way. This is not...
There's definitely trends with that in these books as well. The main character in my first book is named Miffany, to rhyme with Tiffany, and because that's the way the little girl who I used to babysit pronounced it. But then I found out midway through the book that in fact it's a Welsh name, and they're like, no, the correct pronunciation is Myfanwy. But by that stage, I'd sort of imprinted on it. So I really do have form in this regard for getting words pronounced incorrectly in the books.
I had a friend named Tiffany once, and she hated that pronunciation. So she asked everyone to call her Fanny instead.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So sometimes names you make your own as you go along, and it bears little relation to what your parents said at the start.
Absolutely.
So today we're going to be doing a Circle of Deviations style episode where we have a wheel with a number of questions from our listeners, and we spin it and we see where it goes, as well as a more traditional author interview.
Fantastic.
We have reached out to our listeners, to my family, who are big fans of your work.
Oh, geez.
For the record, and you were featured on our podcast's very first episode.
Ah.
I put your name in under Books That Need More Love.
Oh, I am touched. My foundation.
So I'm very happy to be here today. And over the weekend, I raced through your latest book, which is about to come out.
Oh, terrific. You got a copy. Splendid.
I did, yes. And so I ignored my family and read you in a blitz for about 1.5 days.
Oh, this is what an author wants to hear, that, somebody has ignored the world and their responsibilities in favor of. No greater compliment.
I figure that's a consolation for an author.
Absolutely. So
let's go with our first spin. From one of my co-hosts, we have, how do you curate your personal library?
Oh, gosh. Are we talking just in terms of shelving or regardless? I'll start with that, which is I always shelve according first to height and then series. You look appalled, but this is how I have to do it. It looks fantastic, and it means that I can stack books evenly across the top. I don't shelve by genre. Or I keep series together, but I like the idea of series being put together that wouldn't normally hang out. So I've got, L.A. Confidential next to Finn Family Moomin Troll. I like a bit of juxtapositioning on that point. But I am, double shelved in a lot of situations, and there's a few precarious towers of books around the place as well. There was a book-a-lanch the other day, actually, which nearly crushed my dog. Yeah, she was nearly crushed by Marvel omnibuses. So I'm sort of rebuilding for structural integrity. You got to put the good, big, thick ones at the bottom and build up. But I have a friend who shelves according to color code. She has the actual rainbow across the bookshelves, which kills me softly, not least because my books are, as a result, not all shelved together. So
here's a question from me in particular as a follow-up. Do you separate in any way books that you haven't read yet?
Yes. So once they've been read, they get to go on the shelf and gloated over and sort of displayed as my trophies. And then the ones I haven't read yet are in the precarious, guilt-inducing stacks.
Okay. I have one of such stacks in my bedroom. It's getting a little too high. It should be moved over to the double shelving, which is off screen here, and you can't see.
Outstanding. Are we now? When you say high, are we talking waist height? I really feel unless it's nipple height, you haven't reached true guilt proportions.
It starts on the top of a bureau, but it is above my head.
Okay.
So anything that can potentially fall on your head needs to be watched over for safety.
Yeah, fair enough too. Plus, I have a few of the comic boxes sort of stacked against the wall, and they form a little subsidiary coffee table, which have more stacks upon them. So it's
Hmm.
It's a lot of material. And it's one of those circumstances where you're like, well, if ever I'm snowed in, then I'm set. And then it doesn't snow here ever, so.
Yeah, where are you calling from today?
So I am based in Canberra, Australia, which is the capital city, although, as I was saying, not a lot of people outside Australia seem to be aware of that fact. And in fact, quite a few people inside Australia are always sort of bewildered, like, oh, that's right, Canberra. So, yeah.
Okay, let's go for another spin of the wheel. Okay, from one of our listeners, Yeti Beats, do you have a Mount Rushmore of Australians? 4 Australians that you would put up as particular shining examples of your country?
Oh, gosh.
If you feel like there's way too many people to pick from, you can choose a subgenre to limit your scope.
God, I mean, bewilderingly and embarrassingly, the first thing that immediately came to mind is a racehorse named Farlap, who is an iconic Australian identity, and I think also
Go for it.
may have been born in New Zealand. So I like the idea, first off, of the racehorse being sculpted into a into the mountainside, and then other classic Australians that deserve to be immortalized in gigantic stone faces. Oh, God, they're all coming. It's all coming up. Animals from TV or from entertainment. Next would have to be Skippy the bush kangaroo, which was sort of our equivalent of Flipper the dolphin, or Lassie was this kangaroo. So I like the idea of A, the horse, B, the the kangaroo, and then presumably some sort of politician with an enormous mustache, looking mildly bewildered, and then oh gosh, I can only think of. Wow, that is really a question that's sort of taken me aback abruptly. I was not prepped for that. Let's come back to that. Now that we've got the horse and the
Okay.
kangaroo sculpted in, I'm panicking clearly.
There is actually a companion piece to Mount Rushmore.
Is this the Native American warrior?
Yes, the
Yeah.
Crazy Horse Memorial.
Yes. I remember reading an article about it. It looked amazing. Has it been completed? I wasn't sure if it had been completed.
I don't believe it's been completed. No.
Okay.
One of those projects that goes on for generations,
I kind of like that.
like old cathedrals.
Yeah. I love the things that take forever. Canberra, where I live, is a very young city. I don't know if you know the story behind Canberra, but basically the two great cities of Australia, Sydney and Melbourne, could not agree which would be the capital city. And so they were like, well, we'll just build one in between. Here's a nice piece of sheep pasture. Dump Parliament there. So we have, lots of new-ish buildings, but near me is a quarry. And I'm like, this is really the only thing that looks old and impressive, is a big sort of terraced quarry carved into the mountain. Like, this is what will survive after humanity is gone. So I think it's like a Mount Rushmore in terms of future species. You'll be like, oh yeah, there was something here that did stuff.
Yeah. I like the idea of compromised capitals in the middle. I come from Maine, and Augusta is not really a capital that seems like a logical choice.
Yeah, but I kind of like the way they fly under the radar. I feel like a lot of things can get done as a result.
Yeah, it means your seat of government is not competing with a commercial port.
Yeah, precisely. Well, so the weird thing is that Canberra is in its own little territory, which is sunk in the middle of New South Wales. So it's like a little island state surrounded by the greater ocean of the state of New South Wales. But they felt that Canberra should have, they were like, all great cities have to have an ocean port. So we have a little nodule on the coast that also belongs to this tiny, ridiculous state. It's really kind of encouraging.
I guess it makes it easier to ship in the marble. Who knows?
Exactly. So, yeah.
Okay. Let's go for another spin.
Is there an actual wheel?
There is not, but there is a scroll wheel on my mouse.
Okay, that
and
works.
That works
too. That works too. I kind of was like, he's not even reaching up to spin it. This is ridiculous.
No, if it was the main podcast, there is an actual wheel.
Okay.
It lives in Salt Lake City, Utah, unfortunately.
Okay, cool.
From Befuddled Panda, coffee, tea, or neither?
Great question. Thank you, Befuddled Panda. Coffee in the morning, and then hot chocolate throughout the day, and then one more coffee at 5 p.m. And that is it. I used to be a tremendous coffee snob. I trained as a barista, and Australia has a very strong coffee culture. And so for a long time, I was very snobbish about my coffee and was sort of like, oh, no, it's got to be done correctly, and otherwise this is outrageous. And then I realized one day how much I'd been spending on my coffees, and I trained myself to accept the cheapest and most dodgy of instant coffees. So now it's just a scoop of the crystals in the hot water, and then a sugar and milk. So, and then a latte if or a flat white if I'm feeling very virtuous throughout the day.
Fancy instant coffee has been getting a lot fancier recently, but I'm not a coffee person at all.
Oh, really? Okay. There
Yeah.
are extremely impressive ones out there, but I have the big industrial sized jar. If there's another lockdown or if the world ends, I'm set for fiction and instant coffee.
That's excellent.
It's like money in the bank.
All of my coffee products have like micronutrients and calories built into them and
Oh
are
my,
definitely not coffee exactly.
that's very sophisticated. Gosh, you're generations ahead of us.
It's very tech bro at the moment. But I appreciate when you have industrial amounts of coffee in your books for these police procedurals that take all-nighters to the next level.
I don't. You've read the book more recently. I had, in fact, it was a key part of the thing was that this team was granted the area that had the special coffee machine in there, which is referred to as the Fountain of Youth, and they were like, quick, make a hyper latte or an ultra, cappuccino. But I think I think it's in the director's cut version. It's one of those things. You may have noticed I go off on tangents in these books, and I think this was one of the things that sort of suffered as a result.
We are a podcast of tangents, but I will say that a love of tangents is a little bit required for reading some of your books.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll get into debates with my editor, and she'll be like, "Is this part necessary?" I'm like, "Absolutely. I slaved to describe the origin of the wood in the supernatural private club in World War II." And she's like, "I guess we can keep it in." And I was like, "Absolutely." And then later, I'm like, "You know what? I really could have done something else with that." It's new. When you see the size of the book, you're like, "Oh God, maybe not quite so many details about things that don't actually push the story forward."
It's world building, and it's
Absolutely.
whimsical world building.
People want to know, or I want to know. People will want what I tell them to want.
It makes it easy to do your own little fan expansions of the world building.
Absolutely.
You know the style, and you just know, okay, I'm talking about this new room in the Sheke, and okay, where did the wood come from?
Exactly. These things sort of occur to you, and then you become very attached to them. And then later, if you're strong enough, and I'm not always, then they get cut to be used in something else, or for future literary
Mm-hmm.
historians when they're going through my hard drive to be like, oh my God, I had no idea that he'd given so much thought to the feng shui of the bathrooms or whatever.
Brandon Sanderson was apparently recently convinced that he should just start publishing lore documents and not include them all in his books.
Oh my gosh! I mean, people would devour them, so I can't blame him for thinking that.
Yeah, there's been a few complaints that his books get a little too info dumpy, so he's just separating them out now.
See, I can't agree. I love an info dump, as is probably obvious to all my readers. So I'll take everything that gets poured out. I'm like, more information, more details. Who wouldn't want a book, the size of one's own torso? That's
Yeah. And this is already the man with full-page illustrations and diagrams that get interspersed regularly into his books. And I mean, come on.
vast amounts of text. It's like I've said it before. It's like money in the bank. You're like, well, I can return to this if transported into the void. As long as I've got all my books, I'll be fine.
Exactly. I love when you can make a whole separate art book out of a book.
I dream of that for my own stuff. It'd be hilarious.
I will say I would love some illustrations of some of the pawns from the Sheke.
Yes, absolutely. Although, I think in some cases it would be more of a collage than an actual professional illustration. Lots of features grafted on there.
Sure. I want to see a man made of sapphires tumbling down the stairs.
I was very pleased with that concept. It's one of those things where you're writing like, what would be amusing? And then you start sort of sniggering out loud. And I write in the National Library of Australia. I go there to write because if I stay at home, I get nothing done. But it's always full of sort of angsty looking students hurriedly cramming, and they sort of look over if you laugh out loudly to yourself. So, but I was very pleased with the Sapphire guy.
I was pretty happy with him too. Okay, let's go for our next question. From Yeti Beats. You have a degree in medieval history. What are a few of the wildest facts that you learned throughout your education?
Oh gosh, you could see the seeds of what I do now sort of being planted because the favorite paper I ever wrote was, oh my God, it was genius. The Victims, Practitioners, Ingredients, the Role of Children in Medieval Witchcraft. Which I found all this fantastic stuff for, which I draw on periodically. So I learned a goodly amount about that, and they were all it was very important that children who had not yet been baptized formed a key sort of element in the concepts of medieval witchcraft. In some cases, they sort of thought, oh, there's not the protection of the church or God.
Hmm.
So they were always like, oh yeah, if you can get bits of an unbaptized infant, that's really got good potential magic. And I vaguely recall that breast milk could be used to dispel certain kinds of spells in theory, because it was the protection of the mother and so on. So a lot of good symbolism in magic. That was one of the things. And then for a while I studied, I had a wonderful advisor who said, well, I see you studying rape and murder. And I was like, okay, wow, what about me suggests this? But it turned out quite well, because I like reading crime books. And I thought, well, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna be, solving medieval crimes. It's gonna be like Cold Case meets Brother Cadfael. And in fact, it was translating a lot of legal cases, but some of them were fascinating. And I always liked the whole trial by ordeal thing, where they sort of said, well, we're going to pour burning metal on your hands and then bandage them up. And in a few weeks, if they're healing, then clearly God has judged you innocent. And if they're going pustulant and you're not healing well, then you're clearly guilty of this murder. And I feel it has a certain charm
Oh,
to it. Oh yeah, it's right up there with the whole ducking of the witches thing, but they
very
took it
much.
pretty
Yeah.
seriously in this regard. So all these sort of things always sort of feed into my idea of a reasonable supernatural legal system and so on.
Yeah. I see you reading a lot about murder. That's the equivalent. I had a friend once who was, her mentor told her, oh, I see you going into pediatric oncology.
Jeez Louise.
I think you'd be a good fit.
I mean, I could see how that would be challenging but rewarding in a lot of instances, which is my diplomatic phase for anything where I'm mildly horrified at the prospect.
I've heard that the positive of treating children is that they bounce back much better.
Oh,
But
okay. That would be a grueling field, I think, in a lot of ways. Wow.
well, you have a lot of grueling experiences for your children in your Sheke files with the estate and all of that.
This is true. This is true. I really, though it was one of those situations where as you're writing along and you're like, yes, we have a secret organization and it's got all these people, some of whom have supernatural abilities. What do we do with them? How do you store them? Where do you train them? How do you arrange for them all to have therapy, which obviously they'd need? And it really tied into the whole tradition of the British boarding school, and the secret military training camp. I thought, oh, good, a combination of that. So, yeah, thus the estate was born.
My sister just chimed in with a question, so I'm
Hey,
going to give some priority there.
absolutely.
The Rook is so fun to read because it mixes action, humor, and mystery in a fantasy setting tamed by the bureaucratic business of government program. When you write the comedy, do you have it all in several drafts of a joke, like a comedian, and practice them on an audience, or is it all off the cuff?
It's generally all off the cuff, as you're writing along. Although, you know what? Periodically, if I get stuck, and this makes me look so undignified, I'll go for a stroll around the library, around the outside. You can't go walking around in the reading room talking to yourself. But I will work out dialogue out loud, which does not look impressive, or it didn't until I got a phone with headphones. And now people assume that I'm actually on a phone call as opposed to just having a conversation with the air or myself.
Good trick.
Yeah, you've got to do these things to protect your reputation. It's a small community of people who go to the National Library every day. But yeah, the joke will come along and I'll be like, oh, wait, I'll throw this in. So, but I'm so glad she enjoyed it. How nice. Does your sister have good taste?
My sister does have very good taste.
Excellent.
Yes, though I fear I recently traumatized her with the Parable of the Sower.
I don't know that. Is it good?
It's very good. It's a post-apocalyptic literature, and she was like, "Oh, well, yeah, I can see this kind of world happening, and so I've got to prepare."
Jeez. That's all right. Is it Sower SEW or SOW?
Sower.
Terrific. I will seek it out.
Octavia Butler. She's a fantastic author.
Great. I have made a note. It's gonna be very awkward. I'm gonna come out of this with more things than your listeners get. I'll be like, I should read this. I should read that. And they'll be like,
We guarantee one thing when you join our discussion server, and that it's you will leave with more recommendations than you can possibly read.
fantastic.
Spin the wheel again.
Great.
Befuddled Panda asks, how do you deal with writer's block?
Oh, wow. I have a few go-tos. Generally, if I get sort of stuck, it's in the middle of the book. When I'm not entirely sure where I need to go. I usually start a book with a couple of good strong concepts. It's a hideous cliche, but once again, the walking really helps and sort of talking it out loud. If push comes to shove, I'm never afraid to say, "The phone suddenly rang," or "A shot ra" well, I don't do "A shot rang out," but I'm a big fan of having a party scene. I feel like if it all if push comes to shove, throw people in together at a party. You can see them sort of acting as themselves. You can see how they'll behave, and it's always a good opportunity for violence or romance to sort of emerge. So that's one of my fallback strategies, but also just going along and walking and sort of brooding about it. Generally, ideas will come to me at the least opportune time. It'll be at a time where I can't really write it down. So it's the shower or in the movies while waiting for the movie to start. So I've become kind of a master of holding the phone up and doing like audio memos. Take a note, man devoured by walrus or whatever, and try to do that as subtle as possible. But the key for me is to remove myself from the actual laptop and go out in the world a bit.
Okay. I have another family question here, this time from my mother.
Hey.
How did you come up with the character of Miffany?
Cool. Okay, I've always loved amnesia stories. So for those of you who are listening who don't know about the Rook, I'll give you the 10-second spiel, which is: woman wakes up in a park in London. She's lost her memories. She's surrounded by dead bodies, and in her pocket she finds a letter saying, "Dear you, the body you are wearing is mine." And I've always loved amnesia stories. I loved Quantum Leap. No, not Quantum Leap, because that's not an amnesia story, but that does feed in. But The Long Kiss Goodnight, The Bourne Identity, and one of the important books from my youth was Master of the Grove by Victor Kelleher, who was an Australian writer, which opens with somebody waking up and not knowing who they are. And I thought, this is something I want to pursue, but also kind of make fun of in some ways. And so, who am I going to have? I decided a woman would be an interesting character to write. And so as I was sort of proceeding, I said, okay, well, it turns out her name is Miffany. It was very much a setting myself in situations and giving myself new questions to answer. And Miffany just became sort of a person who I liked the idea. She was inserted into her old life. She had to fake being herself. And I don't know if this happens to everybody, but every once in a while, there'll be somebody and you think, oh my God, this is a very important person I'm dealing with. They're very impressive. And then a friend or a member of the family meets them and is like, that person's an idiot. And you're like, they are an idiot. And I like the idea of somebody being able to come into your life or assuming a position in your life and looking at people with fresh eyes. And so that's very much a key part of Miffany is she comes in without any pre-expectations. And part of what makes her herself is looking at things fairly skeptically. So that was kind of the key DNA for her.
Lovely.
Okay.
Another question from Befuddled Panda. Are you a dessert person?
I am tremendously a dessert person. I really enjoy dessert. It is I like I have a sweet tooth. I like lots of different kinds of flavored milk, which sounds demented, but I'm like a good portion of my Instagram feed is like, hey, I found a new interesting flavor of milk.
We have some excellent ones down the street.
Oh,
I will say, local farm that does blueberry coffee and strawberry. Oh, and especially their chocolate. Their chocolate milk is divine. And personally, I need to water it down at least half and half with their 2% milk.
Ooh, I'm getting myself to Maine. Clearly, this is like the mecca of milks. It seems right now in Australia, there's very much a trend for like increasingly obscure milks to be released as limited editions. I always feel like it's just for me since nobody else ever talks about these. But when they're like, yeah, we've made an apple crumble flavored milk or a cola flavored milk. Yeah. Or a pink marshmallow flavored milk. You're like, what is it? So I vault upon these as quickly as possible. And people are like, where do you find these milks? I'm like, the dairy section. But yes, I'm a huge dessert person. That's very key for me. And I usually try to shoehorn an interesting dessert or an interesting meal into the books. I always sort of fantasize, well, I'll go to this restaurant and then, try the food and write it. And then, I can claim it on tax. And my accountant's like, you can absolutely not do that. That is not legitimate research. I'm like, fine. So.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I need to go to this $500 a plate restaurant because I need to know how posh people for my book will react to the food.
Exactly. My art demands that I do this,
I need to know how creamy the souffle is.
Yeah, I need more interesting adjectives or combinations of citrus and, chocolate. So, unfortunately, it has not yet been a legitimate thing. But I dream.
A personal question this time on the theme of desserts.
Oh my gosh.
I love the way that you describe certain statement pieces in your books, certain hats, coats, gowns. Do you have any particular references in real life that you're like, I want to recreate the feeling of seeing X garment for the first time?
Not really. I think generally no. Although I would say one of the things that really did feed in, I had the opportunity once to go to Royal Ascot, the races, which did feature in Stiletto, and that was amazing. The hats there were incredible. All the men are sort of wandering around in gray or black morning coats, but the ladies look astounding, and I really did try and draw from that. But I do enjoy not wearing great fashion. I don't. Oh my gosh, are people going to see what I'm wearing? Because it's like dark blue.
No,
Okay,
no,
thank
we are audio only.
bullet dodged for you guys then because I'm just wearing a dark blue t-shirt. But I do enjoy the astounding creations of fantasy. I like a fashion documentary. There's good ones on McQueen and Valentino and stuff, and you say, oh man, this is something that would be hilarious or fascinating to have, but especially hilarious when you think of like government workers wearing these outstanding outfits. So I always like to slot those in there if I can.
There is a certain appeal to the government suit as well, but I do particularly love the gowns and hats that you have some of our female characters in.
Fantastic.
And in Real Gambit, a male character.
Which one? Oh my gosh, which it sounds terrible that I'm not sure.
You had a very dapper gay man in a kimono inspired
Oh,
outfit
yes, yes.
that I think you said was inspired by a friend's actual wedding outfit.
Yes, yes. This is, oh God, Caspian Vanacore is the character.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And he is fantastic. And I stole my friend's wedding outfit from this, and it's extraordinary. And I thought, well, I've definitely got to use this somehow. And also, the friend is my jewelry expert, so I was constantly texting him with questions about tiaras and gemstones. He's like, well, let me tell you, this is what you need, and this, I'm like, well, what would be an appropriate centerpiece? He's like, well, you want this kind of emerald. So he lives a much more aesthetically beautiful life than mine.
I wanted to say Vap Nupel, but I know that's a different author.
Oh God, what a great name though. It's sort of, it sounds Dutch as well, and Caspian Vanacore is a very Dutch name.
Yeah. I was particularly inspired, or my imagination was, by the Whitby Jet tiara.
Yes, yes, he and that was a suggestion from my expert, but it also fit well because Whitby is a town in London, or not London, the UK, and one of my favorite series as growing up was the Whitby Witches series by Robin Jarvis. I don't know if they were big in the States, but I was obsessed with them.
I don't know them. I'll have to look them up.
Oh my gosh, he wrote and illustrated these great kids books, including The Deptford Mice, which you think, oh yes, it's stories about mice living in a house in London, and then it's some of the darkest fantasy I've ever encountered. I was like, my God, this really is scarring me. And then he wrote prequels in the sort of the medieval period, and there's like weird hedgehog cults wandering around the place. He's a fantastic writer. But anyway, Whitby really, as a result of his books, featured large. So when my friend suggested, she should wear a tiara of Whitby Jet, I thought, my God, of course, this is very important supernaturally, and it is where Dracula comes ashore in the book Dracula. So,
Oh, really?
yes, on the doomed ship Demeter. So it's all sorts of levels of coolness, and I think I had it. I believe they're quite important. I think they found quite a few pterodactyl skeletons around Whitby, near Whitby, and that fed into the Rook, where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a dragon scene. I'll put it near Whitby with the pterodactyls. This is great. So, yeah, there's so many levels and layers, none of which are deliberate, but which make me very satisfied.
So we have another question from Yeti Beats, and it's, what are the keys to a successful road trip? And I'm wondering, have you ever done any research road trips for your books?
Not so much research road trips, but I have gone to a couple of writers' retreats with friends. I always go for the ultimate disaster in a road trip. I assume that the car will plummet off somewhere or get stuck somewhere, and I'll be trapped away for a good long time and have to survive. So, and my friends have made fun of me for this. I like to have the two, at least one or two bottles of water, and those are not for drinking. Those are for keeping in case
No?
we're marooned, in the car.
For ultimate drinking.
I mean, yes, but only if the car is not running and if we're trapped. That's disaster water.
In Australia, that's very reasonable. We ran across someone stranded with his car in a tree in the middle of the outback once.
What?
And he had no water. He had a couple cans of Coke, and that was it.
See, this is justifying my thing. So yeah, you got to have a couple of bottles of disaster water. You need at least one packet of cookies that you're not allowed to open during the drive, and you need two novels. fallback novels in case you have to wait a good long time to be rescued. And ideally,
Okay.
one would be a James Michener, like those big, thick ones, and then the other can be something new. But that's what I
Okay.
like to
Okay.
have for my road trip.
Okay. Those are your emergency basics.
Yeah, those are key.
Now that we've covered the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need
Okay.
to go up a level.
Yeah. Okay, then you can have your drinking water if necessary. I like packets of candy, but they should be in wrappers. I don't like I don't like to have candy where you get in. It's like
No bags.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it can be in bags, but you still got to have like paper wrappers. You got to unwrap them in and unwrap them dangerously while driving. Like you've got to keep your fingers on the steering wheel while you're pulling the wrapper thing, and then put your head forward to the steering wheel. It's very ill-advised, but it's. I have a process. Don't question it for eating candy in the car. And then you can have your driving cookies or biscuits as well. And actually, the last road trip I took, there was a long delay. They were doing construction, and some enormous person came over to say, "Sorry, mate, it's going to be a long time." I was like, "Dude, not a fret. Would you like a Florentine biscuit?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll have one of them." And my friend was like, "I can't believe you offered him cookies. I can't believe he took them. What if you were a psychopath?" I'm like, "What? Who would poison a construction worker with pre-poisoned cookie?" Yeah. But my friend was utterly appalled at this. So that's key for a road trip. And I like to listen to local radio stations. So
Oh.
rather than this is not a rejection of the podcast format, which is a worthy art form, he says hastily. But I like to hear local radio, and especially local news. Where they'll be like, "This is what's going on." You're like, "Oh my god, I had no idea that was an issue." That's how I do a road trip. But and for a long time I thought I'm not a good road tripper, and then I had the opportunity to go on some long drives and solo drives. I'm like, this is terrific. This is fantastic. I don't have to listen to anybody. And also, my policy is if there's a scenic lookout, you must turn aside to investigate it, which works in some cases very, very well. But recently, I sort of turned off the road on. I was like, "Hey, a scenic lookout, 2 kilometers away. This will be fine." And then it was immediately on an unpaved road. And storm clouds were setting in, and there was no cell reception. I was like, "I'm going to be killed. I'm going to die somehow. This is how I die on the way to the scenic lookout." And then when I got to the scenic lookout, there was one other vehicle. It was huge, dusty SUV, and I thought, "Oh, this is great. I'm going to end up, in this man's glove in this glove compartment." And then a very nervous family came out of the forest, and they looked at me, and it was clear. Wait a minute. I'm the person they're worried about. I'm the potential serial killer. So, yeah. I forget what the basis was. Oh yeah, you should always go investigate the scenic lookout. That's mandatory.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my road trip rules.
I actually used to be a technical director of a high school radio station, so I appreciate people who actually listen to little local radio.
Oh, terrific. That's so cool. You would have heard some good anecdotes, I imagine.
Our favorite thing was that we had a close personal relationship with the artist Wing.
Oh.
I have no idea if you're familiar with her, but she was featured on South Park for her comical singing.
No.
But we fostered a real relationship with her, not a satirical one. And we got all of her latest albums, and yeah, it was an experience.
That's
we
so cool.
We also got Wing mouse pads for the office. It was great.
And this is for the local high school?
She is a lovely woman. Yeah.
That's so cool. And nice to be lodged within the community. That's terrific.
Yeah, I don't think it exists anymore, unfortunately. Our airspace was always coveted by other local interests, and I think finally they were able to say that we weren't doing enough with our airspace, and it got taken away.
That's terrible. How frustrating. Especially for people like me who are driving by and want to get dabble their toes in the local culture and ethos.
Yeah, it's like we're students. I'm sorry we don't have 24-hour curation of our airtime, but give us a break.
Was it 24-hour? Did you okay, this one person can have the 3 a.m. thing?
That was the grounds that they were using to take away the airtime.
God.
They were like, hey, they're not using it 24 hours a day. And we were like, okay, we can automate that. But then they were like, okay, but there's not actually a person on it 24 hours a day.
That's vexing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like every radio station does that.
I had no idea.
But we had a lovely 100-watt tower that we used to make fun of our main rival, who only had a 30-watt tower.
Was your main rival another high school, or was this
another high school?
Okay,
yes.
I like the idea of you taking pot shots at some poor minor community radio station.
We made T-shirts of our radio coverage areas, and we said, "Hey, we're better."
Editor Kip here. The T-shirts actually said "Size Matters."
That's fantastic. Oh, the spite! I love it.
Yeah. That was one of the nicer t-shirts that was made against our rivals.
I can well imagine.
From our listener, Jingles90, what is a non-speculative fiction book you would recommend?
Oh, non-speculative. Wait, is it a book that's not fiction? Or
I think you can take it either way.
okay.
Either purely fictional, but no speculative elements,
Mhm.
or
Or something else.
nonfiction.
Okay, I would recommend, because I love it, Norman Longmate's book, Longmate. It's called How We Lived Then. How We Lived? How We Lived Then. Clearly, I love it enough not to be totally certain of the title. But this is fantastic, and I discovered it purely by accident because I was reading obituaries, and this gentleman passed away, and it talked about his book. And what it is a history, effectively an oral history, of how people lived in civilian life in the UK during World War II. It's fascinating. All these great anecdotes, all these great details. And what he had done is he had put ads in various papers saying, I want to hear about your life and so on. And people wrote in. But as I recall, the big newspapers wouldn't place the ads. So it was all like little local newspapers and industry journals. So, the Fish Fryers Weekly or the in-house newspaper of a big shoe conglomerate, these kind of things. So it's fascinating. You get all these weird little details and lovely stories. You've got children who are being sent out to stay with different people in the countryside. You've got how people managed for food. You've got how people made their own cosmetics or drew seams down the backs of their legs to make it look like they were wearing stockings. But also, you just see how people sort of live, in times of great upheaval. And I was really reading it during the COVID lockdowns, and people were saying, oh my gosh, life is so difficult, and we're worried about this and that. And, I appreciate there were tremendous challenges. But when you're reading about high school students who are saying, well, we were given the option of either going to the bomb shelter or finishing the exam, and we had to finish the exam, you're like, okay, this puts my life at least in a bit of perspective. So, yeah, it's a great book. I've read it quite a few times, and it's thick too. You get your money's worth. You could use it to beat someone to death with as well, which is a bonus.
Lovely,
Yeah.
lovely. I know a lot of audiobook listeners who choose primarily first by length and then other considerations.
Okay. I don't know if it's audiobook. Maybe it is. I hope. I don't know. I don't do audiobooks as much. I'm a very fast reader, so I really can't bear being read to. And I have mastered the art of reading while walking. So
Yes, that's a key art.
yeah. So I go for my lunchtime get less fat walk around the Parliamentary Triangle, and I'm reading as I go. So people are always like, "Oh, how do you do that?" I'm like, I have good peripheral vision, and the only time I ever fell down a manhole, I was not reading at the time. So there you go.
The key is just pick someone to walk in front of you and then just follow them.
I mean, you pause at roads. It's not like I'm just barreling across a street without looking. And you look up periodically to make sure your stuff, yeah, very important skill.
And that's how you avoid falling down the open stairwells in New York City. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to keep an eye out for like traffic bollards so you don't get like briskly punched in the crotch by the landscape, but still, which has only happened once or twice.
Those are a surprisingly infrequent thing in the cities that I walk through.
You know what? You've dodged a bullet in many ways.
And I've only walked into a stop sign like twice.
Oh, that's impressive. I've never walked into a stop sign, but like I said, I did fall down a manhole, so. In my defense, the cover was not on very effectively. I was actually coming out of the library with an armful of books, but I was reading none of them. And as I stepped on it, and the cover popped out of the socket, and I plunged hip deep with one leg into the manhole, and the other leg was right behind me. And my body, I sort of flung the books out in front of me, and a very beautiful girl was walking by, and she was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" But she did not stop, which just goes to show that, I didn't get my meet cute moment. And then eventually I sort of picked myself up, and I went to this was at university, and I went to the medical center, and they were like, "Do you have an appointment?" And I was like, "No, I did not know that I was going to be falling down a manhole." And they said, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "But I am bleeding." And they said, "Oh, okay. Well, is it gushing?" I was like, "It's kind of seeping." And they said, "All right, well, you can take a seat and wait." And luckily, I had an armful of books, so I was happy to wait. And then, they were sort of bandaging me up, and the nurse was like, "What happened here?" I'm like, "Manhole, hole in the ground." And she was like, "Wait, I need more information." So she called in a friend to hear the story. And then a couple of weeks later, I was attacked by bees in a post office. And when I went back to the medical center, the same nurse was there. She's like, "Oh my God, it's Manhole Guy. What did you do now?" I'm like, I was attacked by bees. And she's like, oh my God, you. So
you had a different meet cute, and you made friends with the local nurse.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They were always like, oh,
Okay.
what have you done now?
My most memorable story with a manhole was when I had a broken leg. I was leaning up in the car because my cat had a full leg cast, so I couldn't sit normally in the car. So I had to sit sideways on the seat. And my brother opened up the door behind me that I was leaning on. I fell backwards out of the car, which was a big SUV. So it was a ways. I
Oh
was in
my
like fifth
gosh.
grade at the time. Hit the back of my head on a manhole, cracked open my scalp, was bleeding profusely. And when I got to the hospital, they didn't have room for me. They set me up in a gurney in the hallway, and I was bleeding so much that it overflowed from the gurney and went onto the floor, and they had to put up a wet floor sign for
Oh,
my blood.
wow. Oh,
And then
man.
they stapled me back together, and my neighbor later took out the staples.
How did you break your leg, if I can ask?
Sledding.
Oh,
I hit the one tree at the bottom of the hill. I hit directly on with my leg.
man. I miss sledding. I only ever got to do that when I was visiting people in Michigan, like going from Australia to Michigan to visit people. Man, but I never managed to break my leg. Gosh. Okay.
My grandfather planted that tree when he bought the property with my grandmother.
Did the tree survive? Was the tree okay?
Oh, absolutely. The tree did not care. The tree
Yeah.
shattered my sled and my leg and was unaffected.
I was out, as a youth walking the dog at night, and we ran across somebody's lawn. I think she broke the leash and I was chasing her, and I ran into a sapling on somebody's lawn and snapped it. And I had to go around the next day and be like, I am the one who broke your tree. And I was so prepared for them to be like, that's the tree we planted when our daughter was born. But it was not, thank God, and they were relatively reasonable about it.
Good.
It was mortifying to explain.
Wasn't some sort of rare
Yeah.
varietal.
No, we were relying on that tree to cure cancer, and now, no.
Okay. We have another question from Yeti Beats. When Stiletto was coming out, you said in an interview that you wanted to explore hate and that it was a main theme of the book. What did you take away from that experience?
I when I say, well, I mean, I definitely did think a lot about hate, and it's the concept of Stiletto is two different organizations who have loathed each other for centuries, coming together and being merged together, and then so I tend not to dislike groups of people. I dislike individuals, um, so sort of getting into that mindset of thinking automatically, okay, that person is not to be trusted. How do you react to that, and how do you behave? How will you, and how will that affect how you do things? Was kind of it was difficult in some ways, and when you sort of think, well, I've read books about wars and conflicts and that sort of thing. I can get into that mindset, but it took some work. So it was an interesting thing, and actually the title of the book was almost The Hate until I was talked out of it, or just Hate. But actually, none of the original titles of any of my books ever survive. I'm always like, here's my title, and they're like, that's great. So what will it actually be called? I'm like, oh, well, I guess it's not going to be called that. It's a theme that has continued in the subsequent books, where we have these two groups who tend to regard each other with skepticism and suspicion, but it's sort of mellowing out. It was very challenging in some ways to think of characters who would say, "We will kill you, we will hate you," because we hate you, and just because we've been taught to do so. It was very alien to me to explore that.
Okay. Do you have a favorite Discworld book?
Oh gosh, yes. So I'm very fond of Mort, which, for those of you who are listening who aren't familiar, is when Death takes an apprentice named Mort. And most of my affection for that book comes because we actually put on the play of Mort in high school, and I played Mort because I had curly hair
Aw.
and was very awkward looking. But also, I had an American accent and an Australian school, and made no effort to put on an Australian accent or any other kind of accent. So I'm very, very fond of Mort. But I would say my favorite is Lords and Ladies, which is,
Oh.
yeah, it's wonderful, and it's got it has these brilliant witches. It's a good rip on so many things, but most especially Midsummer Night's Dream. I think it's very, very clever, very, very beautiful, and really develops the character of Granny Weatherwax, who's an ongoing character in the Discworld things, very importantly and very beautifully. So I would say Lords and Ladies is my favorite Discworld novel. Although, I mean, you take any one of them, they're all such genius, so brilliant.
They are. I'm on record as a Witch series fan, so. I'm
Cool.
with you on Lords and Ladies. Absolutely.
I always say to people who are starting the Discworld series, you should start with Weird Sisters. I
Mhm.
think that's the best one to start with. But yeah, Lords and Ladies is my absolute favorite. I'm just looking at all of my books, of my Discworld novels now, and gloating over them. Oh my god, they're so good looking. Money in the bank.
We have another question from Befuddle Panda. If you could collab with another author, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Okay, cool. Who would I? I mean, the authors I really adore. One is torn between thinking, "Oh God, I wish I'd read that," and "Oh God, I'm so glad I didn't," or "I wish I'd written that," and then thinking, "I'm so glad I didn't write it because I get to read it and enjoy it as a book, without the baggage of having written it and been like, oh God, that was hard to write." I think I give more respect to work that hasn't come out of my head because reading my own stuff, I'm like, oh my God, that guy who wrote it. I mean, he's very tall and impressive, but God, he's also. I also know all his frailties and flaws. Who would be a neat writer to collaborate with? God, now I'm looking at my bookshelves. Actually, I should put on my glasses so I can so I can actually see them as opposed to just the affectionate blur. You know, maybe. Oh, I can't. Gosh, it's such a good question, and I can't think of each one. I'm just like, oh, I should read. I'm like each book I look at, I'm like, ooh, I should read that again. And then I'm like, I couldn't write with that person. They'd be way better than me. I really love the world building of Frank Herbert. The Dune books.
Mhm.
No, I couldn't insert myself because I get too much interested in the ideas of them. I wouldn't dare to put forward a proposal. Maybe Dick Francis. Are you familiar with Dick Francis? Murder mystery.
I am not,
Oh,
no.
murder mystery writer from the UK, now passed away, but I think he and his wife wrote. I think it was him and his wife collaborating, but I think they just wrote. I think it was just published as Dick Francis. He had been a jockey. He had been jockey to the Queen Mother, and a great jockey, I gather. And then he retired from that and wrote murder mysteries. And every murder mystery was related to horses in some way because it was the field he knew. But also he would find something new and research that and incorporate it. So each murder mystery is say, here's a murder mystery about horses and photography or horses and this. And I think I enjoy his books so much. I grew up reading his books and liking them. It would be neat because I'd love to hear his stories about being a jockey and stuff. And also I think I like his technique of finding these things. And they're always quite tight books, which I think would be good for me because you can tell that he was very
Mm.
disciplined. So we'll go with Dick Francis bewilderingly. I'm like, oh, I really didn't think I was going to come with that answer. But I'm like, not only do I think that, but I'm like, I should reread a whole bunch of his books. There you go.
Now you got me thinking about Lillian Jackson Braun and her The Cat Who Blank series.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, man. I need to reread those. It's been a long time since. See, this is the thing. We keep coming away with more books to read. Oh, you know who would be good? Would be no. I just like reading her books. But Elizabeth Peters, who wrote good, tight murder mysteries as well, and she was an Egyptologist. She wrote the Amelia Peabody books.
Okay.
But I like her, which is about a lady in Victorian period who is quite a strong character and interested in Egyptology, and she solves crimes. But I like Elizabeth Peters' other books. There's a series about medievalist who solves crimes, and a librarian who solves crimes. Oh, the librarian ones are great. I should reread those. This is not very helpful at all. My God.
Our listeners, as I've said, love to come away with recommendations. So
Okay,
you
good.
could keep going.
Terrific. I'll show restraint. Oh my God, Georgette Hare. She wrote Regency romances.
Yes.
Are you familiar with? Yeah. Oh man.
I am familiar with her, yes.
Yeah. I like her stuff. I should revisit those too. I've got to stop looking at my bookshelves. This is not productive for a podcast interview.
In the spirit of ending on a Green Team friendly note, Befuddle Panda asked one final question. What are your fandoms?
Oh, books of which
Let's just keep going on a recommendation tangent.
Okay.
What are your fandoms? What are the works, TV, books, otherwise, which you feel like you are an invested member of?
Okay. I very much like James S.A. Corey's The Expanse series, both television and book.
Fantastic.
Which is rare for me because normally I'm like, if I love the books, I don't like the adaptation. And if I like the adaptation, I don't like the books. And in this case, I actually managed to watch the show while reading the books, and each one was enhanced tremendously as a result for me. And also, I'm just looking at the books on my shelf right now for those. Whom else? I'm just finishing rereading all of the ones that have been released. It's a comic book series. I have them in the collections, and this is the Lazarus series by Greg Rucka. Are you familiar with?
I'm not, no.
Oh, I recommend wholeheartedly. Very cleverly done, and it is sort of a dystopian, insufficiently distant future where the world has been divided up by family corporations. And he does marvelous world building with that, and the art is fantastic. And a new book was recently released, so I devoured that. So the Lazarus series by Greg Rucka, fantastic. Fandom. I love comic books, and now as a result, I can think of none of them. Well, I just thought of that one. So what more do you want from me? What else do I read automatically when it comes out? Bill Bryson's stuff, I always devour and redevour. I really enjoy Bill Bryson's things. My favorite of his is the one, Domestic History at Home. Have you read this?
No.
Oh my God, it's great. Everybody always talks about his travel books, which are hilarious and funny and good. And he wrote, a short history of nearly everything, which is a good history of science.
Familiar with that one.
But At Home is terrific, and it's all weird little stories about the things all around us, and fascinating facts like, why are there 4 tines on forks?
Okay, I have read a book about that, though.
Okay, yeah, and it's that people don't like putting any other number of tines in their mouth. They get afraid of it, which I think is genius. I've been rereading China Miéville's Baz Lag books, Perdido Street Station, The Scar.
Yes.
And I've always wished that more were coming out. Adrian Tchaikovsky's Shadows of the Apt series I really loved, which was a great fantasy, steampunk, insect totem melange. Although, actually his book Children of Time, have you read that?
I have, yes.
Oh my God, that is the book. That is one of my go-to gift books for people. You never worry so much about spiders in your life, I'm all like, Charlotte's Web.
Befuddled Panda worries quite a bit about spiders.
Oh, well, no. In this case, one is concerned for the spiders. I'm not worried about them. I'm like, go spiders, go. That's a fantastic book. And there were 2 sequels. I couldn't believe how lucky I was. How fortunate for me that he wrote more of them. Gosh, books in my youth that really knocked my socks off were, of course, Terry Pratchett's books. I remember first discovering those, and Mythico Wood by Robert Holdstock. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not, no.
Oh, it's terrific. Very beautiful book. And there were more ones written in the series, which are great, but the first one, Mythico Wood, really, I think I always felt like this is the first real grown-up fantasy book I'm reading in 7th grade, finishing at 2 a.m, feeling very profound in that regard.
Another question for you. Are you familiar with Tamora Pierce?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Okay.
I haven't read those in years. I'm a huge rereader. I've been trying to keep a list of books I read throughout the year. And so far I'm about 7 new books and about 50 rereads. So I should reread those. I'll have to see those. I haven't read those for a long, long time.
And they're still getting new covers, so.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love a new cover set. Actually, my books are being re-released in the UK with new gorgeous covers, and I just gloat over them and pat them. They're so pretty. Although I also really love the American cover for Royal Gambit with the quokka on the cover.
I do love a quokka.
Dude, there's something about them, and I find that even just writing about a quokka puts one in an incredibly good mood. So, yes. Oh,
Dungeon Crawler Carl has a quokka.
Oh, what? Brilliant.
Are you familiar with Dungeon Crawler Carl at all?
No.
It's a lit RPG about an Earth that gets invaded by aliens, and the thing that they do is open up a dungeon that they live stream to the galaxy, and they put like a few million humans through it.
Genius. I love the idea.
Ostensibly, if one of them wins the dungeon, they can get the mineral rights to Earth back.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, I will seek this out.
Because it does the Hitchhiker's Guide thing of, well, you didn't file a petition to stop the mining of your planet.
Of course. Therefore, as a result. I'm a big Ben Aronovich fan. Have you read the Rivers of London series?
I have read the first.
Okay. I really enjoy it. And there's a new one coming out next month, so I'm super excited. When I first heard about it, I had a brief but amusing nervous breakdown. They were like, it's supernatural law enforcement in London. And I was like, no, that's what I'm writing. But then I read the first one. I'm like, oh, no, it's fine. It's wizard police. It's not mutant public servants. It's not mutant bureaucrats. This
totally different.
Completely different. It's fine. And I really enjoy his books. So I'm very excited for the next one, which comes out in like a week or two. So Gosh.
Have you read Charles Stross's Laundry Files?
No, people keep mentioning, and because I had read his Merchant Prince books
Yeah,
and really enjoyed, and they're like, "Oh, it's yours are very similar." Like, I can't have any cross contamination, so
I agree. I think it might be one of those ones that's too risky for you to read.
yeah, and it's killing me because I enjoy his writing, but no, I had to show a modicum of restraint. Did you ever read? Are you familiar with Cage Baker's books? She wrote the Children of the Company series. I think she's passed away now,
No.
but it was a very clever concept in which a company in the future is trying to develop immortality, but the only way to test it is to invent time travel. Because you go back to the depths of time, you try your process, you go back to your time, and you're like, are they alive? No? Okay, go back and try again. And eventually they develop the process. But as a result, they now have these immortal people at the beginning of time who are going to catch up to them. So they employ them. So these immortal cyborgs are living through history, tasked with preserving things. So whenever you hear about like a Monet that was discovered in an attic, it's them. They've hidden it there because people in the future have paid. Be like, I want a Monet, so put it aside. So you're following these cyborgs that are going through it. In the first one, they're tasked with preserving a hedge in Tudor England. In the second one, they're tasked with preserving an entire Native American tribe in California, the culture and the genetics and everything. But all the time, there's a year beyond which the cyborgs hear nothing. And they're told, oh, well, that's when you're going to be introduced into society. But there's suspicions and doubt and conspiracy. So I really enjoyed it. The first one was called The Garden of Iden, Iden, by Cage Baker, Kage Baker. Yeah.
Okay.
Who else am I a big fan of? Neil Stephenson, of course. Really adore his work anytime something new comes out. But I've read his big, thick Baroque Cycle and Cryptonomicon and stuff many times. That's a go-to on the Kindle. And always a good one to have in the car if you're afraid on a road trip you might get marooned. It's something to fall back on.
I appreciate Neil Stephenson for finding at least one weird sex thing that I would never have thought of before I read his books.
Is that the antique furniture?
In each book.
Oh, okay.
The antique furniture, for sure.
Yeah, in Cryptonomicon, I'm like, I can't believe I'm reading this. I'm like, oh, wait a moment. Talk about unexpected and entertaining, sidetracks.
Yeah.
And I also I also really enjoyed.
No, that's an expensive fetish. Was all I was going to say.
Yeah, the Gomer Bulstrudes, and then Gomer Bulstrude comes up in later books. You're like, was this planned? It must have been. I really enjoyed Stephen Hunt, his Jackals series. The first one is called The Court of the Air, and they're a series set in a neat magic / steampunk universe. Each one sort of stands by itself. I really enjoyed his books. The first one's The Court of the Air by Stephen Hunt, Phen Hunt. Yeah. So I've got to stop thinking about I'm more books that you all should read. However,
it's very on brand for us, and I'm very happy for this to be the conclusion of the interview.
Okay, excellent.
Did you have any last things you wanted to say?
You would think I would. Well, I have a new book coming out. Royal Gambit is a supernatural thriller, like all of mine set in the British Civil Service. I feel like I should probably give it a plug. I always tell, novelists, all right, you should have your 20-second pitch. So I'm refining my 20-second pitch. And in this, the Prince of Wales is found dead. They do an autopsy and find a stone cube in his brain. And so a secret supernatural government agent is assigned to the new first in line to the throne to protect her and also to investigate the murder. So that's my proto pitch. I'll tighten it up more as time goes along.
I enjoyed Alex quite a bit.
Oh, thank you. She was not the easiest of characters to write, but it was very rewarding. And her full name, which is Alex. Oh God, if I were a good person, I would have memorized it. Alexandra, one of those innumerably long hyphenated names: Dennis, Palmer, Hudson, Gilmore, Garnsey. And the first four are sporting houses from my primary school. And then the last one was the sporting house that I was in high school. So I think it's one of those jokes that you're like, you'll only get if you went to Garren Primary and then Canberra Grammar School, or if you listen to awesome. this podcast.
It's been a blast to have you here with us today. I am personally honored.
Oh, shucks.
And my family is squeeing off somewhere else.
Oh, thank you so much.
At this opportunity. So thank you so much. This has been the Legendarium Green Team. You can join us on Discord or on Blue Sky. Thank you, Craig, for loaning us this corner of his media empire. Thank you, Horizon Brave, for getting us all started. Our intro and outro music is Galactic Damages by the Jingle Punks. And we will see you next time.